Just got to the end of day 32 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry, Tranche 2, Phase 2. It was the last hearing of the year. We have been listening to more nonsense from Andy Coles. Just the very end, the last line was really poetic. We've just been talking about it. It was put to Andy Coles by David Barr that he had sexually deceived Jessica, and rather than be looking for accommodations, it should be a cause of intense shame. I thought we all agree that was incredibly poetic. I'm joined by Kate Wilson, who was watching the evidence with me. What did you make of it?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to say that when it was put to Coles that that ought to be a cause of intense shame, he literally said, "I have no shame." Like that was actually the last line. I'm pretty sure I may have hallucinated it. It's been a long day, but I'm pretty sure that if you watch the video, the actual last line is Andy Coles saying, "I have no shame." Yeah, I mean, it was the closing part was really powerful. If you're going to watch anything, watch the end of today.
Unfortunately, that wasn't live streamed.
Oh, fuck yes.
I mean, there are a number of matters that were in the final questions that are subject to a reporting restriction order. I did have to delete a couple of tweets this afternoon, but the majority of things are okay to cover.
Okay, and I don't know what these things are, so if you see me wince, it's Tom kicking me in the shin and telling me to shut up with what I'm about to say. So there was a really powerful part where Mitting delved into the frankly ridiculous story that Coles has told, which is that the reason why he ended up in bed with Jessica was to protect his family. And basically what he said is that somebody had told him that there was a BBC investigative journalist team, so he felt that he couldn't go home because it ran the risk that the investigative journalist team would follow him from London Boots Action Group meetings to his address and from there to his family home. And so in order to protect his family, he didn't go to his cover address. He went to Jessica's house and slept with her instead. The Mitting quite astutely pointed out that the BBC documentary was about hunt sabbing, and why would he be going from a London Boots Action Group meeting rather than from any of the hunt sabbing events, because Coles has already said in one of his other lies that the only times that he would ever go to spend the night at Jessica's house or even visit Jessica's house was after the monthly LBAG meetings. It was only once a month and it couldn't have happened very often. So this incident where he's going back there had to be after a Boots Action Group meeting. And Mitting kind of just picked this apart, and frankly Andy Coles flapped around like a beached fish. Like he really, and you could see the panic in his face. He was like, where is he going with this? Have I been caught out in a lie? And he flapped around and he tried to answer it, and he's trying to pin down the date, and he was coming up with completely uncredible things, and eventually was just like, I'm sorry, I can't help, I can't remember. And it was entertaining to watch, because it was just like, is he really going to fuck it here? And you could see in his face he was thinking, am I really going to fuck it here? But this is all like the very end, the last 10 minutes. I mean, the it's been a long day.
It's been a very long day. I mean, the other thing that Mitting picked up on, which I think was really important, was earlier on today we had David Barr took Andy Coles to the Tradecraft Manual, to the section of the Tradecraft Manual which he wrote about sexual liaisons, about the very famous section in there about having that it was better if you have to have a relationship with one of your targets, to choose someone outside your immediate target group and make sure it is a fleeting and disastrous relationship. It's put to him that he means sexual relationship by this, and Coles argued for quite a while with Barr that he didn't mean sexual relationship at all. It was just relationships generally. Barr pulled up in really big the subheading sexual liaisons, but Barr refused. Coles refused to budge on his position. Mitting brought that back up. He pointed out times where Coles had used the term relationship to refer to sexual relationships in his other statements, and that obviously in this section particularly he was obviously talking about sexual relationships. Coles again was refused to budge. I think this was the moment. If this really kind of dotted the I's and crossed the T's, but why we're finishing early, there is no point in questioning a man who was going to have such barefaced lies. I mean, we've seen a lot of lying in the witness stand at this inquiry. I don't think there's anything. I mean, it is someone trying to claim that the sky is green and that the grass is blue. I mean, it was just an utter nonsense. And I mean, there was no doubt in my mind that Mitting did not believe a word that was coming out of his mouth on this.
His face was an absolute picture. And it really felt like Mitting was offering him a last opportunity to say, oh, maybe you're right, maybe I've made a mistake on that, and kind of stand down from it. And Coles was just, I mean, he was not stepping down on anything. The arrogance, the arrogance was really summed up by the final question that Barr asked, which was after Mitting. Barr came back and said, given everything that we've seen, would you, do you still think? And so he read a very striking section from this fascinating document that is Andy Coles's post-deployment debrief, and it was all about how pissed off he was by how ungrateful the police were. He'd never received any commendations. He'd slogged his guts out, this was all read to him of how he really felt that he should have been receiving commendations, and he was then asked, what, given in the light of the evidence we've seen, do you actually think that you achieved? And this is a question that's been put to some other officers, and generally they have said, well, I don't feel that, looking back, maybe I should never have been there. Probably my deployment didn't achieve anything. Coles was the complete opposite, basically saying that he gave this long list of glorious achievements from his none of which have really been backed up by any of the evidence that we've seen, and actually said the words, I am struggling to find the superlatives to describe how amazing my achievements were. It was just like, it was pathetic. It was arrogant, it was pathetic, and it was embarrassing. And I sort of feel like they put him there and they let him embarrass himself.
He certainly achieved that. He definitely managed to embarrass himself quite significantly. A lot of it turns out that everything after the break this afternoon wasn't live streamed. It related to a whole bunch of evidence that we can't really talk about. So there's not a lot of other things this afternoon that I really feel we can mention.
The Trevor Monaville stuff.
Please.
So this is quite a big deal. So we heard back in T2P1, I believe, part one of this tranche.
I mean, it just feels like that. Actually, I think that John Burke Monaville gave evidence about 6 weeks ago.
Right. Okay. Anyway, back in the mists of time.
It feels like that at this point. I mean, it feels like I live here. So.
Yeah. So we heard from John Burke Monaville, father of Trevor Monaville, who ran the Trevor Monaville defence campaign, and we heard the absolutely horrendous story of what happened to his son, which all started one New Year's Eve when he was arrested and taken to Stoke Newington police station. Now, I was a kid in the 1980s, but even I heard of Stoke Newington police station being a den of corruption, and it was just when I first became an activist, it was like, you do not want to get taken to Stoke Newington police station, it turns out Andy Coles in one of his interviews had made a throwaway comment to the Hearn interview as, I know all about Trevor Monaville. And he was asked how he knew all about Trevor Monaville. Turns out he was a uniformed PC at Stoke Newington police station. He admitted today in the evidence that there had been problems of police corruption in the station at that time, and that he was actually on duty the night that Trevor Monaville was injured. We heard this deeply harrowing story from John Burke Monaville about how he never really got answers from Stoke Newington police about what happened to his son that night in the police station. He was left permanently damaged, my understanding is, but from brain injuries that he received in Stoke Newington police station. And the man that we saw on the stand today started his career there and was on duty that night, which was a big deal, I think, and it came very late in the day, and I feel like it needs more exploring. I think it's one of those things that that was just a bit of a like, whoa, the firm I haven't quite.
He also admitted that there was significant corruption in that police station. He said it's like, oh yeah, that's right, yeah, there's corruption there.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that is going to need unpicking, of course. Is I mean, and then this is also going back to the stuff that he said, and this has probably already been covered in the videos, but the stuff that he said about how the SDS responded to the death of Stephen Lawrence. He was in the SDS safe house having these conversations after Stephen Lawrence was murdered, and his answers to that are revealing by how obviously lies they are, because he keeps repeating that when Stephen Lawrence was murdered there were conversations in the SDS safe house, and they were all about how concerned the SDS were that the investigating team that were investigating the death of Stephen Lawrence were not competent. And it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? like I don't even know where to start with that one. But that was your first thought.
I mean, it was quite interesting as well that what Cole said that his job was when he was at Stoke Newington Police Station was reporting on community tensions that existed. So I mean, it was that he was well aware not just of what happened with Trevor Monaville, but also that what the reaction on the local community would be, all these kind of things. He spoke as well a bit about the we had a bit about the training of desk officers to do shallow undercover work. And I mean, both these things really illustrate the sort of the wider infrastructure of repression that we talk about, that there exists beyond the SDS and the NPORU, and that really what the state does in terms of squashing radical movements is not just these undercover officers, but all these other things. And we saw a few glimpses of that today.
Yeah, we did. I mean, this is something that's come up. I mean, when Jessica spoke yesterday morning and she asked about her registry file, and this is something that I think we're going to need to push more going forwards, is we've seen quite a lot of evidence now of how these files that were kept on people informed the SDS officers who were infiltrating them. We have John Dines specifically saying that he selected Helen Steele based on her registry file and deceived her into and this stuff is not necessarily, so we're not seeing it here because the inquiry has limited the evidence that it's looking at to evidence that it knows, or at least strongly believes, comes from undercover officers, and we are missing a vast swathe of political policing and intelligence material that was obtained by other means, that was not obtained by undercover officers but was used by undercover officers and informed a lot of the decisions that are being made. And there's this whole, what we're seeing here in this inquiry really is a tiny kind of niche bit of the political policing apparatus in this country. There's stuff like that. Another interesting thing that I heard today is that it sounds like it's likely that Coles is going to have to come back for the MPORU because he trained the early officers going into the MPORU. And this is where it starts to get interesting, because we're hearing about one of the most interesting things I felt from Coles's end of deployment rant is the fact that he was utterly scathing about all of the kick him out.
Jessica has just joined us. Do you want to sit in? Just take a seat. She obviously can't be on screen, but you're off screen there. But yeah.
Sorry. I'll finish the point. He was deeply scathing about the kind of ACPO regulations and all the very minimal controls and checks and balances that exist to try and maintain the lawfulness of these operations. Coles basically pissed all over them and he claims that he was angry and he had PTSD and all this, but it really demonstrates an attitude. What we see going forwards into the next tranche is the introduction of the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act and the Human Rights Act, and how these political policing units continue to piss all over that and just be like, well, this is nonsense, this is not how we want to work, and just they do it another way. And I mean, that's what ultimately led to the IPT ruling that the MPORU operations that targeted me were unlawful, and that's what we see starting here with Coles, and that just disrespect and disregard for even the most minimal of oversight and lawfulness. Yeah,
absolutely. We have been joined by the woman of the hour, Jessica. You won't be able to see on screen. We're not about to ventriloquist act. I'm just going to pass her the microphone. I just really wanted to hear your thoughts for the last 2 days of evidence, what you've made of it all, what you think of it.
You can swear.
I don't intend to swear. Yeah, it's been an awful lot to take in, and I don't like to sort of to say that I don't think he came across very well.
He really didn't.
But he didn't come across very well. It's like even the lies didn't make sense, and the lies and the more lies, and then yes, no, I didn't, that's not what I meant, and arguing, and I think it's quite difficult sometimes with David Barr. It sounded like he was actually getting sort of a bit pissed off with him at times. Yeah, so it's a lot to kind of process though, and I mean after giving my evidence and feeling sort of that was just too much. I mean I was fried on Thursday. I was absolutely knackered, and then like all the things that I remembered that I forgot to ask, so I wanted to go back and ask, and then to be told that he's accused me of forging my letters to my best friend when I was in France, where I criticise him for being a shit boyfriend and saying that I want to dump him. And yeah, I've now got to find letters to prove that my handwriting is different at times. I don't know. It's a bit of a joke, really. But I'm just pleased it's over. I just am. I mean, I'm disappointed that he's not doing another day, because I think it's so stressful and horrible being up there that I just wanted to see him suffer for another day. But unfortunately, we've got a day off, but I still would have liked to see him struggle to try and answer a simple question. But yeah, I'm just pleased that it's